clearing close in the forest you'll find a fabulous banquet, a fairy ball. If you close your eyes and you open your mind, the veil disappears and you'll see it all.
Hi my angels, it's Hailey Reese, and for today's video we are finally back with yet another video in the haunted house series. For those of you who might be new to my channel and have no idea what the haunted house series is, I started this channel by sharing a ton of stories about my childhood home that had a vortex in the basement laundry room and was extremely haunted. It's one of my absolute all-time favorite series I've ever done on this channel, and it's one of the things that I am most excited to share with you guys time and time again. But the reason that I haven't been sharing so many haunted house story videos is a couple of reasons. So the first reason is because I don't want to run out of them. Like, I have a lot of stories, but ultimately if I was telling them every single day, eventually they're going to come to an end because I no longer live there. And I enjoy, like I said, sharing these stories with you guys so much that I want to continue sharing them time and time again, over and over again, just spacing them out so that you guys can continue to have them and I don't run out of stories. The second reason that I haven't been sharing haunted house stories is for the polar opposite. Some people were like, okay, we get it, your house was really haunted. Some people even started to not believe me because I was sharing so many, and that's completely understandable. I mean, one thing that you guys have to remember is this house had generations of family members that lived within it. This house had so many people experiencing things, so even if I run out of personal stories, I continue to share stories of my family members, and I occasionally plan to continue bringing them on my channel to share them with you. But with that being said, I've missed the haunted house series. My goal is for the next little bit to try to bring one on my channel a week. So for those of you who have long awaited this, thank you so much for being patient. Today's story is one that makes me just like so excited to share, but also just really freaks me out. And it's something that my aunt experienced one day in the backyard. So without further ado, no more rambling, let's get into this story. I really hope that you guys enjoy it, and here we go. So when I was thinking of what story I wanted to share next, I was talking with a lot of my family members, trying to see, you know, stories of things they've experienced and weighing out which one I think will be the best to come back with. And we narrowed it down to 3 specific stories that I've yet to tell that were insane. I put a Twitter poll on my Twitter, and this was the one that won. So when I was a very small child, as a lot of you know, my grandparents' house is where I primarily lived up until my mom was able to move out and we were able to get our own home. So I lived there and I spent a lot of time there. And one of my absolute favorite things about this house was the fact that it had a pool in the backyard. I mean, what better childhood than being able to spend your entire summer swimming and enjoying the outdoors? And that is exactly what we did. We had so many family members that enjoyed the fact that we had a pool, and my grandparents were like so open to everybody and anybody coming over that people would just call and say, hey, can I bring the kids over today to go swimming? And my grandparents would say, yeah, go ahead. All good. The only rule that we had with this pool was that there had to be adult supervision anytime any child was in the pool, and if you didn't know how to swim, you had to use a life jacket. But for the most part, everything was always good with this pool. We never really had too many incidents. One time my mom almost drowned and the woman in white saved her. That's a whole other story, but this pool was just a really great family memory. Now my aunt began to tell me about a time that I wasn't at my grandma's, but all of my cousins were. And back when I was a kid, I don't know if it's the same now for kids, I feel like it's a little bit different, but we used to just play with all of the kids in the neighborhood. Like if one kid was outside playing with another kid was coming outside to play with them, and for the most part, everybody kind of played with everybody on the street. You had favorites, like sometimes you would ditch other people, which is so mean, but for the most part, everybody played together, and there was always a specific backyard that everyone would gather in. Now, because so many of my cousins spent so much time there, whether or not I was there or not, my cousins had accumulated a lot of their own friends in the neighborhood, and there were quite a few children in the neighborhood. Like the house across the street from us had like 6 or 8 kids, something crazy like that, and one of them was my friend, but there were boys, there were girls, there were so many people on this street. So my aunt calls up my grandparents and she says, hey, can I bring the kids over for a swim? And my grandma and grandpa said that they were not going to be there that afternoon, but they were more than welcome to go to the backyard, swim, and enjoy themselves. So my aunt shows up there with her kids and they're all getting ready to swim in the backyard. And a couple of neighborhood kids recognized that they were outside. They all asked if they could come swim as well, and my aunt was like, sure, why not? Same rule, can you swim? Yes. Do you need a life jacket? No. And everybody was just having a good time. Now, like I mentioned earlier, because so many kids were always like coming and going from the area, my aunt didn't really take too much alarm when this one little boy who called himself Leo showed up in the backyard to swim with the kids. The only thing that she found odd about Leo showing up in the backyard was the fact that he was dressed in like, not winter clothes, but a sweater and jeans and like shoes. Like he wasn't dressed like it was summertime. He was dressed as though maybe it was like fall time. And it was a really, really hot day. All of the kids were running around in their bathing suits. So when this kid shows up kind of dressed like he would be overheating, she found that to be odd. But other than that, she just thought he was another neighborhood kid. Now the little boy came into the backyard and he said hi to my aunt, and my aunt said, what's your name? And he told her his name was Leo, and he said he was gonna come play with the kids. And she didn't think anything of it. All she asked him was if he was planning to swim, and he replied to her and said, I wish I could. And so she took that as either his parents weren't gonna let him, or either he wasn't like able to swim, like he didn't know how to swim. But she told him, if you'd like to swim and it's okay with your parents, you know, get a bathing suit, we have life jackets, you're more than welcome, you know, the more the merrier. And he just kind of shrugged his shoulders and walked over and sat on the diving board. Now all the kids for the most part were in the pool, she said. Everyone's kind of playing, and this one little boy is just staring from the diving board into the pool at the kids. And so my aunt kind of started to feel bad for him, but I mean, if he didn't want to swim, or if he couldn't swim, at least he was able to be around the kids and they were all kind of playing together. Now my aunt doesn't remember the time frame for this happening, but all of a sudden she looks to the pool and she sees Leo in the pool with like all of his clothes on. And she's like, oh my goodness, like this kid is going to be drenched when he comes out. Clearly he can swim because he was in the deep end, he was like treading water, he was floating, but he was completely in his clothes and his shoes had appeared in the water. And so she yelled out to him and was like, Leo, why don't you go get a bathing suit or something? Like, come on. And he puts his hands on the side of the pool and he jumps out of the pool. And that's when my aunt realized that he wasn't even wet. And like what I mean by this is like when you get out of a pool, you put your hands on the deck, or it was concrete actually, you put your hands on the concrete, typically you're gonna make a puddle of water, you're coming straight out of a pool. But when he put his hands on the concrete, it wasn't even wet at all. And when he pulled himself out, he like looked like he would be wet, but there was no real water dripping. So like what I mean by this and what she described is like his clothes like looked like he'd just been in the water, but he wasn't dripping. And so she was like, that is so weird. And she went to grab him one of the bigger beach towels because she figured he's in real clothes, it's gonna be like really, really wet and absorbed a lot of water. So she goes to grab him this beach towel and she goes to bring it over, and all of a sudden the kid is just gone. The kid's nowhere in sight. There's no puddle of water where he just got out of the pool, nothing. And so she turns to her kids and she says, where did Leo go? And her kids look up at her and go, who? And she's like, Leo, the little boy who was just here. And the kid said something along the lines of, you're crazy, Mom, like it's just us. And so she's looking around and she sees all the neighborhood kids that are playing together within the pool. She sees no puddle of water where Leo had just climbed out of the water, and she sees nothing in sight. So she opens up the gates like the front of the house, because the way that my grandparents' house was set up was, it was like a bungalow. So to the right was the bungalow, the driveway was to the left of it. There was a fence like this, and like when you open up the gate to the fence, to the left's the pool. So she opens up that gate to the driveway to look for this kid. There's no like water trail, which there would be if you went into a pool with full clothes and shoes on, and there's no Leo in sight. And that's when she started to pry at her kids, asking if they knew if there was a Leo in the neighborhood. None of them knew of a kid by the name of Leo, and she guarantees that she had seen a ghost. Now, it wasn't until a couple of years later, and one of my small little cousins, had to have been about 3 years old, was playing in the basement and was talking to somebody. And I mean, everybody for the most part that spent a lot of time at this house knew that it was haunted, like knew that things were going on. The only thing that was different about this being a haunted house to your typical haunted house is the fact that we had a vortex/portal in the basement. So we had new activity every single day. There weren't always like, there were a couple that we would see consistently, but for the most part things would come and go or like pass through. through. So they heard my little cousin talking to somebody in the basement, and when they brought him upstairs, they started to ask him, listen, like, who are you talking to? And he went ahead and said, my friend Leo. And that's when everybody freaked out, because my aunt had told everybody of this strange experience about this little boy in the pool who wasn't even wet, who disappeared without a trace, and the kids hadn't even seen. And the fact that my little cousin, who had been born years later, went ahead and said that they were playing with someone by the name of Leo, it kind of just pieced together to us that Leo could be the ghost, or a little boy ghost that passes through occasionally. Or maybe he lives there too. But I mean, I never saw Leo. A lot of my cousins never saw Leo. It was only the 2 times that we ever heard of this little boy. But my aunt says this experience was enough to make her forever believe in the paranormal, because she thought that it was a real child. The only things that she found strange about this kid were the fact that he wasn't dressed for the weather, and the fact that when he got out of the pool, there wasn't a puddle. I mean, also that he disappeared without a trace. But you know what I'm saying? Like, up until him disappearing and her thinking this is paranormal, the only things out of place were what he was wearing and the fact that when he got out of the pool, he appeared wet, but there was ultimately no puddle. I don't know, you guys, that story just sends chills up my arms, for the reason and the fact that we could be interacting with ghosts in passing many of times throughout our lives and never really have the chance to realize it. I mean, if my aunt had seen him just walk back through the gate and leave, she'd have presumed that he was a child going back to his house. She would have never thought that this was a child ghost in the backyard actually verbally interacting with her. Now, she never touched him. Like, the only place that he went was sitting on the diving board and getting back out. But she said she saw this kid as though he were one of her own in the pool. And that is so beyond freaky. So that is the story of the boy in the pool. I always love this story. Like, when I tell my friends creepy things about this house, it's definitely one of the stories that I like to tell, just because I find it so fascinating, the fact that when he got out of the pool, his clothes did appear wet, but he wasn't showing water. And I've tried to theorize about like why that could be or what could have happened, but I can't really like pinpoint like what could have happened. So I mean, if you guys have any theories about this, please go ahead, drop a comment down below and let me know, because I think about this one fairly often, not all the time, but whenever like I see a pool and I think about ghosts, because I'm Hailey Reese and I think about ghosts far too often, I always think of this and I try to figure out why that was what it was. Well, I really hope that you guys enjoyed yet another haunted house series video. I figure that I'm gonna start telling one a week for the next little while until it starts to get not low, but too much, and then maybe we'll stop. I don't know, I just really like sharing them with you guys. I have a ton. I've been talking to a lot of different family members about different experiences, and one of my cousins actually told me something interesting about her experience with fairies and gnomes. So I will definitely be sharing that with you guys as well. If you guys are new to my channel, or you are just not yet subscribed but you do enjoy my videos, I would absolutely love it if you would go ahead, click that subscribe button and join the Reese's Pieces. We would love to have you. And please give this video a big thumbs up if you did enjoy it. It makes my heart really happy when I see that you guys enjoy my content, and it just means the absolute world to me. So please do that. Remember, my loves, do all things with kindness. And until next time, I love you.